When it comes to squat bracing, there's a lot going on. And what I want to try and do is simplify it to thinking about two main points. And that's first, setting our upper back position, and then second, setting our low back position. In reality, those two are kind of fighting against each other. Our upper back is fighting into extension, and which then creates this extended position with the low back and this anterior pelvic tilt, which then we almost need to, we don't want to go into flexion, but we need to do the opposite with the low back to then create this neutral spine position. It's very hard to be able to do that together. And so it's better to break that up, in my opinion, into two different parts, which the first is setting your upper back when you're unracking the bar, and then setting your lower back and your what you think of as your brace when you're actually then walked out, ready to squat. So we're gonna break this down first with what it's gonna look like of how we set our upper back. So what this will look like when we're actually approaching the bar is I'm gonna start with straight arms, personally. From there, I'm going to allow myself to kind of lean into the bar to allow that retraction, and then I'm gonna think about almost kind of doing a lat pull down with the bar to then create depression. And then I'm really just gonna try and hold on to that. You can see here, if I turn to the side and just hold that position, I'm in a very rib cage flare position, but my shoulders are packed down and back to create the best shelf possible. And that's really what I'm trying to accomplish at this point right here. Because once I unrack this bar, it's gonna be very hard to move. Just like on bench press, once we set our hips down and we're all ready to go, it's very hard to then change our shoulder position and elevation and depression. Same thing happens on squat. We need to do this before we unrack the bar. We don't want to walk the bar out and then try and adjust, because it's just not optimal. We want to get that done at this point here. So I'm leaning into the bar. I'm pulling down the bar to create that depression and kind of lat pull down feel, lat pull over feel. And I'm going to maintain that as I go through. And as I go through, there's two big keys. One, my head is up. And two, I personally go past my rear delt to really over-exaggerate this position, to really kind of feel that tightness before then rolling back over. Big key here though is that my head stayed up. I see a lot of people that do this, and what they do is they get everything right, but they keep their head down while doing this. And you can see as I'm doing it, I might feel like my upper back's kind of tight, but I'm actually depressed in my rib cage, and I'm not actually extending very well at my upper back. So my head has to be up to lead my chest up. So I retract, depress, pull under, I keep my head up to kind of puff my chest up. Get a good spot on those rear delts as I'm kind of doing a lat pull down to my back while continuing to keep that retraction and depression. And then I'm going to unrack and walk it out. All right, so now showing this from the side, we're gonna go through the same pattern into the actual brace right before we squat. So my arms are straight. I'm going to allow myself to kind of lean in to retract. I'm gonna pull down the bar to create some depression. I'm gonna come under the bar with my head up, go past the rear delts, roll back over them, brace to get tight, unrack, 3-step walkout. So from there, if you're actually looking at my position right now, I'm not in the best spot. I have this kind of rib cage flare position. I'm extended. I have a little bit of an anterior tilt. It's not excessive, but that's because my point of unracking was to get my upper back set. After I unrack, I'm really going to focus on getting my lower back set. So what's going to happen is once I walk it out, the big keys here is that I maintain this upper back tightness, and then I'm going to make sure that I then am bracing correctly. And I have a good demonstration of what this kind of entails, demonstrating with a balloon. All right, so a good way to actually demonstrate what we're doing when we're bracing what's going on with our lungs actually it's going to be kind of silly, but it's using balloons. So here's our lungs. We blow them up. When we inhale, we can't choose where that air goes. That air is dispersing evenly. So a lot of times there's the misconception and cues of, oh, breathe into your stomach, breathe here. We can't actually do that. When we breathe, it's going to disperse evenly. It's what we do with surrounding musculature and the belt that can help to change that. So let the air out. We have our demonstration here of what our torso and our lungs in a sense look like. We have a belt here, and then we have a braced torso and an inhale and breath inside of our lungs. So common issues people have is maybe one, they brace from the lower half of the torso, but they don't brace up top. What happens? You can see the air has to displace up, aka shoulder shrug. We expand the chest and we raise our shoulders. The opposite can happen. If we brace too much at the top and we keep tightness in the lats and the upper back, everything displaces down. This belt is keeping it from being allowed kind of in that central area. So now it displaces down, which a lot of times can kind of get us into extension because we lose that abdominal brace because there's so much force pushing down and we're not tight enough there. So optimal bracing, as we're talking about throughout this video, is using that belt as the external cue, and honestly it does help to kind of have that extremity pressure against. And then we need to brace through the upper back and we need to brace through the lower back. And if we do that, you can see the air doesn't have anywhere to go. And as I push this, I literally feel like I'm gonna pop it. When I do this, it doesn't feel like much because the air just goes somewhere else. Same with this. But if I go both ways here and there's a belt and I'm bracing throughout the middle of my core, the air doesn't, in a sense, expand to any one direction. It more just creates this extreme intra-abdominal pressure, which is exactly what we're going to help brace the torso and create that rigid neutral spine position. So as you saw in the balloon video, we need to create maximal intra-abdominal pressure by making sure throughout our torso we're braced and tight. A lot of times you hear the cue of breathe into your belly. Well, that probably works because naturally, if you think about breathing into your belly, you're going to stay tight up here so that you push all of the air down. Now, is the air actually going down? Not truly, but what you're doing is you're maintaining tightness in the upper extremity so it can't expand as much. But that's not optimal either. Like I showed, if we breathe into our belly, that's going to create probably an issue of extension and lack of ab tightness because we're not then sucking those obliques in to make sure that the air is distributed evenly, and we're trying to, in a sense, crush that balloon inside of us. So how do we do that? So like I said, we're getting our upper back set, we're walking it out, and probably right here I'm not in the optimal position yet. There's still some things I can do here to now make sure that I have my upper back tight, but now I need to get my lower back there as well. So the first key here is our obliques. When we're thinking about controlling our pelvis and our lumbar spine, I like to think of our abdominals. Our hamstrings can help as well, and in reality what we're doing here, if we are rotating our pelvis, is our hamstrings pull down and our abs pull up. As our abs and our hamstrings contract, it changes our pelvic position and goes from an anterior tilt to a posterior tilt, and that helps to line up the lumbar spine as well. I like to think of abs though because most people don't have a very good ability to contract and control with their hamstrings. It's a very difficult thing to do. Some people do a great job of it, but I think for most people, it's going to be much easier to control and use your abdominals to help maintain pelvic position because we need some type of muscle that's going to isometrically hold that pelvic position, that lumbar position the entire time. Sometimes people say, squeeze your glutes to line it up. Well, we can't do that because our glutes then have to lengthen and then contract. They're a muscle going through a shortening and lengthening cycle throughout the movement, so they're not going to help to be able to brace our pelvis very well and maintain this isometric position. Our abdominals though, if we do it right, they shouldn't be lengthening or contracting throughout. They're just holding a position, and if they're doing their job, they should hold that pelvis right where it should be. So I like to do two main things to make sure this air goes into the right place and expands properly and we create that intra-abdominal pressure. Is one, we create that upper back tightness, and when we go to brace, we are pulling that bar down into it. So you can see here, if I don't pull that bar down, I'm going to breathe without any intention. You can see, because that belt is constricting, I'm going to then expand upwards and that bar rises. But if I actively pull down with that bar, which is creating tightness in those lats and upper back, without even thinking, I'm just breathing, you can see there's a lack of elevation now because there's tightness throughout this upper rib cage area holding that rib cage down and not allowing it to expand in the same way. So we need to create that pull downward as we brace. The second thing is keying and finding, second key is to find our obliques and hold on to them. I don't like to think abdominals as much because the issue with abdominals is one, we tend to think too much of abdominals as crunching. And a lot of times when I have people use their abdominals kind of draw and hold their rib cage down, they draw it too much because they think too much of a crunch. Could we do it correctly? Yes, but I think people have too much of an association of abdominals and crunching that they kind of get confused with it. Our obliques, on the other hand, tend to just kind of draw our rib cage down and don't create that same crunch action. So, as I have this bar on my back, I'm slightly extended now and slightly anteriorly tilted. I'm going to pull down to create that tightness, and before I breathe, I'm going to do a light exhale out. And that light exhale is helping to draw my obliques down. So you can see as I exhale, if I do a forceful exhale, and I'm really extended, You can see how everything pulls in to be more neutral. We don't want to be excessive with it. We just more want to find context with the obliques. So a better way to do it is just a very light exhale and learn how to control those obliques. And I almost kind of think about using those obliques to hug that belt. So we're almost kind of like trying to lightly pinch that belt with the obliques as we exhale. So we're here, light exhale. That draws the obliques in. I then actively hold those obliques and contract them while pulling that bar in. And if I'm doing that, pull the bar down, light exhale, hold my obliques, and brace. That right there helped to get everything in alignment without me ever having to think of where's my pelvis, where's my upper back, where am I breathing. All I had to do was create tightness and position that once I then breathed and braced, it just created that position naturally for me. And while that all sounded pretty complex, once you get a hang of it, it's a lot less complex than thinking all these different cues of upper back tightness and where should I breathe and I should tuck my hips under, I should control. Like there's a lot of different cues people use and they get overcomplicated. And if we can just make our setup bulletproof to then create those positions naturally, we're going to be able to be much more repeatable in our efforts to find this position and proper bracing every single time throughout our squat.